Three games changed my life. I grew up in a small town called Hollywood, Florida. It's between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And I remember growing up and being excited because a few days a month, I'd get to go out to dinner with my family. I'd go out to a little fancy dinner. And I don't remember the stone crabs so much being in South Florida, but I remember being excited to go because there was a Pac-Man machine in the lobby. And I knew if I finished my meal fast enough, I could head over to that machine, and while my family was still finishing the Sambuca at the table, I could drop a bunch of quarters on the table and get some games in. That was really exciting. It was also towards the end of the meal that my mother would be able to swing by, and she would always step up and she'd get a few games in against me. She'd always beat me. And, it was, while I think back, I remember the game. I think mostly I remember my mother. See, my mom grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia at a time when an Italian family would traditionally pay for the boy to go to college, not the girl. She made the decision to drop out of high school, a private Catholic high school that she went to, because it wouldn't offer the technical training for her for the job that she would have to step into right away. So she made the decision to enroll in a local public high school so she could take secretarial classes and typing classes. And again, I remember growing up sitting across her desk after work, helping type away and assist her in her work as she finished up the day. The workforce was different then, and it's different again. Never before have we seen 5 different generations at work at the same time. And as I travel the globe and I talk to C-level executives, they kind of say the same few things. They're struggling to onboard new employees quickly. They're struggling to develop employees consistently. And they're struggling to keep people excited about coming to work. And it's that exciting thing that's getting harder and harder. Nearly a third of an employee's time at work is spent doing things other than work while at work. And this isn't just a millennial problem. This is happening with all workers. And it's happening at a time when skill gaps are real. One of the number one pieces of feedback from CEOs about the challenge with their workers is not being ready to work on day one. And as we think about the workforce, it's not so much millennial anymore. While it's 50% of our workforce today, nearly a third, 1 in 3 workers are going to be Gen Z by 2025. And if you're tired of hearing millennial, well, get ready, because Gen Z, they're a little bit different. I mean, they're the same, other than, less sex, less drugs, less drinking, less partying, more afraid of risk, and, they text over calling. Other than that, they're exactly the same. There are a generation like millennials who say that they expect technology that impacts them daily in their lives to impact them when they show up to work. But we know that's not really happening because the only technology today that's impacting workers might be taking us in a different direction. AI, automation, robots. It's said that the majority of jobs today are going to have nearly 1/3 of their tasks disappear within the next 10 years. And it's crazy to think with all of the technology, all of the opportunity we have today, that we're not even taking advantage of the tools that we have right in front of us. Only 1% of enterprise software inside of corporations are available on a mobile device for the workforce. Leads me to my second game, if you're wondering. When I was in middle school, I had to make a few extra bucks. I wanted to make a few extra bucks wherever I could. And while I couldn't get employed, I made the decision that a few days a week I would sneak down to the American Legion that was local in the neighborhood to my dad's poker game. And walking in, and I knew I couldn't play in that game for a variety of reasons, but I knew that I could deal. And over the next few years, there were thousands of hands that I got to deal, just making a few quarters on every hand, and experiencing a World War II veteran, a Vietnam veteran, somebody who owned horses, a few wise guys who were playing a game every day that I started to just sit back and listen to and watch and learn and gain experience. And on every flop, I learned something new about people in the workforce. And that's what really gets me thinking today. There's a lot of talk about skill gaps when we talk about the humans in our workforce that make up our workforce. And we talk about skill gaps, but I'm not really sold on this skill gap thing. I think if you dive a little bit deeper, there's something deeper than that. And here's just one example. If you look at something like the amount of words spoken by folks in our workforce, if you look at Gen Xers, from childhood to adolescence to early adulthood, they had a pretty consistent line of amount of time that they were speaking in conversation. Compare that with the average millennial or Gen Zer today, there is a gap. But I would argue that it's not a skill gap, this is an experience gap. And our opportunity, our challenge today as leaders, is how do we close that as fast as possible at a time when we need to? So it really makes me wonder, what do we do? How do we tackle this experience gap that exists today with workers? What is something that we can use that they're already good at? What is something that that teaches them and challenges them, and something that as they play they might learn? Well, I'm not bearing the lead here. It's a game. And as I step back, I kind of probably could guess what you're thinking. Games are for kids. Do you know that the average gamer that's a male is 37 years old today, and the average female gamer is 44? Do you know that 50% of gamers are female? I could probably make another guess about what you're thinking, which is this is just a fad. Games are going to come and go. We've heard gamification before. It's a $180 billion sector. It's bigger than the film and music industry combined today. But the stat that really impresses me the most is the amount of time that an average millennial will play a game before they're 21. 10,000 hours. And if you prescribe to the notion that the number of hours equates to some level of skill or mastery, we can make the argument that we have a generation of workers today that are experts at playing games. As we look at workers, they need to be great in a few core areas. They need to have the knowledge to perform, which generally means they need to know what to do. They need to have the skill to perform, which generally means that they need to know how to do their job. And finally, and I would argue most importantly, they need to be excited about it. Because it doesn't matter if you know what to do and how to do it. If you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter that you know it at all. We have a workforce today that we need to figure out ways to get them to want to do it. This is where I believe games can help. Games are a powerful opportunity, a powerful platform for leaders and communities and businesses to engage workers and get them to lean in. There's 3 ways I believe games can help us today in our communities. First, if we think about a game, games use points and badges and achievements to motivate action, and they use points and badging to deliver feedback. Research shows that our workers today, they want feedback. They want to know how to do. They want that consistently. They say it on exit interviews. So instead of your boring performance reviews, instead of the pen and paper one-on-one that you do with your team members, what about designing a career ladder that resembles a game with levels, where we can actually create a world where the frontline worker could someday gain access to the corner office by leveling up? Here's another idea. What if we challenge them? The best games are hard. For those out there that play any type of game, we all know that if a game is too easy, we grow disinterested. If a game is too hard, we stop playing. There's a delicate balance at the best games that are designed. So the best games have a level of struggle or difficulty. It's actually why I was so excited to play games when I was growing up against my mom, because there was that difficulty that was constant. And wouldn't you know it, that struggle is actually critical to the learning process. Research shows that struggle is the missing link to driving knowledge retention for workers on any skill set. So instead of printing manuals, instead of just recording learning modules we hope people are going to watch and read, for our different workforce, what can we do to challenge them? Finally, the best games have a payoff. They have a reward, and they use it to motivate action. So instead of using scorecards in a way that doesn't excite, what can we do today to use rewards to incentivize employees to get where they want to go and show them how to get there? Games make real impact on global problems today. Microsoft has a game that they use for special populations. The United Nations has a UN peace game they use in developing economies to teach kids how to impact their local community. And once you know it, the militaries across the globe use games to prepare the bravest for battle. With simulations, the US Army has over 150 game designers on staff. How many do our companies have internally? So I left one game off, and there's one other game that's made a profound impact on me. when I get home from work now, I come in, and it's generally right around now that she runs up to me. This is Nico, my daughter. She generally runs up to me, and I usually tag out. My wife goes to the gym, and I get to take over. And it's right around then that Nico usually runs into her bedroom and grabs some type of blocks or erector set and brings them out. And we play this really awkward game where we together build a really, really big tower, and then she knocks it down. Then I build it up again, and she knocks it down again. And this goes back and forth for, again, close to an hour, and it happens every night. And it really makes me think, what type of job is Nico going to be performing? What type of leaders is she going to have? What type of managers? What type of challenges is she going to tackle? We're the leaders. We're the job creators. We push our economy. We create opportunity. So I guess to take from a gaming term, it's our move. Thank you.